The 2023 Ironman Coeur bike course is a two-loop course that starts with a rather flat out and back section along Lake Coeur d'Alene Drive, where you find an easy rhythm to get ready for your 112-mile bike ride. As you pedal out of town, the course will lead you through some rolling hills of North Idaho. There are some quite steep climbs initially, so recognizing that you have nearly 7,000 feet of elevation and you do it twice, so 3,500 or so each loop. Having good gear management and preparing yourself through the course will be very important for your success, settling into your aero position as the flat miles tick away. But there's plenty of ways that you can be successful and fast in this course, but you don't want to go out too hard and try to climb too hard on those hills. Take advantage of those downhills are very, very important. And there's a nice little cheering section at a hot corner. How do you prepare for something with so many feet of elevation, clearly 7,000 feet on this course?
So when I did this race back in 2008, I was not a climber. I was very intimidated by hilly courses. Coeur d'Alene, I was very intimidated by because of the elevation gain. And I got there early enough that this is one course out of probably the only one I've ever driven beforehand because I was really intimidated by the hills. And I remember on the drive going up, going down a hill and then seeing the next hill thinking, oh my God, that is a wall right in front of me.
Yeah.
And in reality, when you get to the hillier section, those downhills give you momentum to go up the next uphill. So there was nothing long or too steep that you will not have the correct gearing on your bike for. It's different, a little bit different than the climbs I've done in Lake Placid as well as Boulder and other hilly courses. I've even done Ironman Canada, and the hills are just not long or super steep. So for someone who was not a climber back then, and I got through it just fine, it's kind of fun. It reminds me of a little bit of like a roller coaster in that section. And so I kind of had these mental games that I played with myself to get through the climbs. And once I got on the course, it was, again, when I saw the wall that I mentioned while driving, it wasn't a wall at all. It was actually because I had so much momentum on the downhill to be able to go uphill. I do think it's important if you're someone, again, like me, who back then I wasn't very comfortable descending on my bike. Definitely something you want to practice if possible. Practice changing your gears because you're going to be going from a downhill. You want to make sure you're not in too steep of a gear that you can't easily get up that uphill. So you want to be mindful of shifting down to an easier gear because after one descent, you have an ascent. And so you don't want to get caught in a too big of a gear on that next climb. So it's really important to figure out and get some training and preparation for. Very beautiful course. It's definitely one of my destinations. And I live in North America, but it's still a destination race for me.
The first 18 miles, they talk about the out and back is pretty flat. There's like a little bit of a climb in there, but it's a good chance for you to get your nutrition in, get into a rhythm, get your heart rate down, and prepare yourself for the real challenge of the bike course. And that happens around mile 18 or 19. And from what my experience is that these climbs are really only about depends on your fitness and strength level, between 9 and 15 minutes long. Depends on how long, because they're like, some are, a mile and a half, 2 miles, maybe 3 miles of total climbing before you flatten out. So if you know that going in, you can mentally prepare for the challenge that I'm only going to be in this situation for, so many miles before the next downhill happens. And that's what the gradual rolling hills are. And it does add up, and that's why the elevation adds up over time. Before I did my last one, and the last one was, I believe, was 2015 was the full, but I've done the half as recently as 2022. It's just the same course twice. I was able to watch a Coeur d'Alene bike course video on YouTube that showed elevation, distance. They put a camera on someone's car or something like that, and they just drove it. So that's out there online. It's only a 4-minute video because they speed it up, but that's a good way to pre-ride the course without having to pre-ride the course.
Well, and speaking of, they also have apps out there if you're an indoor rider like myself, such as Ruby or Full Gas, that have the Ironman 70.3 and 140.6 courses on them. And in 2022, during my last Hawaii preparation, I rode the Kona course Sometimes I rode the full course in one sitting. Sometimes I just rode it in pieces. And that was very helpful for me to remind myself of what kind of grades of hills I was getting myself into, especially Havi. Havi was not as bad as I
Mm.
remembered it being because I was able to visualize it by riding one of these courses online. And another thing I like about a two-loop course is I like to use the first loop to kind of get in a rhythm, kind of feel out the course and ride it in more of an easier effort, so then I know what I'm getting into, that I'm able to manage the second part of the course. Because in any Ironman, the bike race starts at like mile 80, and you want to make sure when you get to mile 80 you still have gas in the tank to get you through the final 32 miles, and that's where it's going to be hilly again on that second bike loop.